Hello there, and welcome back to the LJL officially unofficial. One of those ways round. I am Middlecourt, joined by Recollect today, as we are bringing you some more LJL Academy tournament round action. What matchup are we looking at now, Recollect?
We are looking at V3 versus Sengoku, and this is the matchup that we came into, and as you spoke about just before the break, it's one that Sengoku has to give absolutely everything to have a real chance of coming back in this one, because V3, they're looking pretty solid this split. They do look like an absolute force to be reckoned with, and I'm excited to see what Sengoku does bring out, because this is the time to bring out any of your cheese and spicy picks, and hopefully they got something special in store.
Yeah, maybe we could see something spicy from Chili Oil. Been pretty consistent performer for Sengoku alongside Nina in the bot lane. But you do have to always look at this V3 Academy side and go, a lot of the players on this team are very, very good. Discussions about them maybe being playoff caliber in the main LJL tournament, and the way that they've been playing through the past few days, I think it would be difficult to dispute that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they are the standout best team, not just by results, but by the eye test as well. If you look at the way they play the map, the macro game in general, they always seem like they're a step ahead of their opposition. And to be honest with you, mechanically speaking, they're all very solid as well. I mean, generally, what we see when we look at teams is we go, oh, this guy is a potential weak point. But when you look at V3, who do you look at to be the weak point? Because their bot lane, Marble has the best KDA of the AD carries, right? I think the first 2 days just was unkilled.
Yeah.
So it's disgusting.
Casually.
Yeah, Yuchio's rise is something that I think people are starting to realize they need to fear. And Vashide on the top side is always solid. So I don't think that there's any lane in particular you can just bully outright. So that combination of individual skill and macro knowledge makes V3 an absolute nightmare to deal with.
So if you were coming into this as the Sengoku gaming coach, hello Recollect, how are you doing? Are you enjoying coaching Sengoku?
No, we're bottom of the tournament.
Okay, but what should you be doing if you are their coach as we come into this pick and ban phase to try and shut down V3?
I mean, you have to go all in early game, because V3 is not going to let you scale. This team doesn't make enough mistakes to enable you to get to the late game to have these scaling picks. If you go for the scaling side of things, you're probably just going to outright lose. So I want to see Sengoku opt into a lot of early game, kind of play it out like the DFM game yesterday. They played against Burning Core, where Burning Core dominated the early game, and if you think about it, they were in a good spot until they threw. So potentially if Sengoku can draft something like that and just play that early game very, very well, they're going to have every chance to win this one. But if they go into that late game stage, V3 hasn't exactly been, shying away from just taking your early game, taking your Nexus, and making you a little bit upset. So we'll have to see what Sengoku does elect to do, though.
But ultimately, a 5k gold lead at 12 minutes is still a 5k gold lead at 12 minutes, regardless of who's got it. And just because you are on V3 and you're very good at the game doesn't mean that your abilities automatically do more damage, although sometimes it may feel like it. We've rushed through these first sets of bans here for Sengoku and V3, as it will be the Viego piloted probably by Aki for the Sengoku side.
Interesting. I've mentioned the importance of Viego in general sort of yesterday. It is kind of considered to be one of the best junglers on the patch, and has shown a decent amount of win rate, shall we say, compared to its pick rate, unlike some of the other champions like the Xin Zhao, who is being picked significantly more. But we see the Lee Sin come through here for V3, and this kind of signifies exactly what I was not talking about in regards to Sengoku they go for the more scaling jungler, if you will, because Viego in the late game get those resets and just dominate. Whereas V3 has the Lee Sin, typically known for his early game power pre-6 and with Dragon's Rage at level 6 to set up plays himself. So all V3 needs to do now is enable this Lee Sin with crowd control. And they've done so. They've already got Yu-Gi-Oh! That Rise, and we saw the Rise Lee Sin combo just yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely disgusting. It was Floor and Creative piloting out to get a beautiful kill in the mid lane for Burning Core Academy. Ultimately, weren't able to pick the W out of there. Sengoku, I think they're just copying what they saw work for DFM in our previous game, as that's the Braum locked in, and if this Ash Hover comes through, then you've got a lot of CC, a lot of utility, but also a fair bit of kill potential in the bot lane.
Yeah, blind double bot lane is an interesting one though, because it does mean that there's a decent amount of emphasis placed on something like the ranged support of Karma. There would be decent amounts of value into this composition in general. I feel like the amount of gap close potential you have picked up so far is very limited, and if you pair it with a poke-based AD carry like this Varus, if you go the lethality route, or potentially something like the Ezreal, which obviously we will not see, you can have a very winning bot lane here for V3 whilst saving yourself top lane counter picks. So I feel as though if we don't see that Karma ban come through, V3 could be in a very strong spot here, as they've already got that Lee Sin for engage as well as the Chains of Corruption, and they can potentially pack a little bit more CC in the top lane. So V3 in a very strong spot in this draft so far.
Yeah, but I think you do need to be throwing counterpick towards Washide, because Yu has actually been one of the few performers on Sengoku that I've looked at and gone, yeah, I'm moderately impressed by this guy, and can offer a win condition for them on some more of these like bruisery teamfight oriented picks, like something like the Renekton or the Set. Whilst he's not necessarily going to be doing all of the damage, can get big teamfight setups, which allows a Viego or an Ashe to really run rampant. V3 though actually targeting out a couple of these mid lane picks that can counter a lot of what the Rise wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, we also need to be careful for the side of Sengoku. They have a decent amount of attack speed within their champion, so setting up, utilizing that concussive blows to just stack up can be very powerful with what they've already got for themselves. So they do have a decent amount of skirmish potential, but they are very reliant on playing around this Ashe arrow. If they can't land the Enchanted Crystal arrow, there is a lot of problems, and that's why I'm thinking you play a movement speed enhancer based support, so something like this Karma, build into that Shirelias, and it feels like at that point Sengoku is in a bit of a tough spot. However, we haven't really seen a big emphasis on ranged poke supports this tournament. It's mostly been engage, and that's kind of why we are going to see the Rel, even though the Rel kind of has a rough matchup into the bot.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of turnaround potential. Obviously, when she goes into that crash down, if you don't connect it, then you can get kited out very, very easily, but still offers a huge amount of CC when we get into big team fights. Combine that with Marble's Chains of Corruptions from the Varus as well. Feels like V3 have got a lot of tools to actually set up these fights to match what Sengoku want to do as well. Will be the Kennen locked in for you in the top lane, as well as the Yone for Akainu.
Yeah, hard dive within those last two picks here for Sengoku, and it makes sense. There's no defensive peel yet for the side of V3, and that backline can be in a lot of trouble. However, they've got themselves that top lane counter pick, so the 1-3-1 option is still online for them, and the Irelia hover here kind of indicates that potential situation, and it is going to be locked in this one. I feel as though...
Sorry there, Recollect, I was eating a Mars bar.
No, it's can I get one? Can you pass?
No.
Oh, okay, that's
full-time LJL OU casters only, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. The lack of Mars bar is disappointing, but the drafts are not. I'm excited to see what these guys can bring to the Rift, and as I mentioned a minute ago, Sengoku, they've kind of rounded this out with that hard dive based top mid. But it also helps to deal with the lack of crowd control I mentioned before as engaged, because you've got that Kennen flank with that slicing maelstrom. You have the fate sealed here for Akainu to jump into the backline as well, and it feels as though if Sengoku can set up well, they're going to be able to flank out the enemy, and from there it feels very difficult to defend if you are on the side of V3.
There's not really that. It's someone like an Alistair, someone that can gatekeep and kick people away. I guess you can do something similar with the Dragon's Rage from the Lee Sin. So if Unica does get a big kick onto you before he actually gets into a team fight, and that can be very, very important if V3 want to play out the rest of the game. But I like what Sengoku have gone for generally. It's a lot of proactive champions that can make things happen, and that's what you really need to do when you're up against a team that's so dominant and so high level as V3 Academy have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key lane to keep an eye on here, I think, will be the mid lane, in all honesty. I feel as though if Akainu starts to get the ball rolling, this could absolutely snowball out of control. This Yone pick is known to be a disgusting champion if he does manage to get any type of lead and is able to find backline access. And we mentioned the Dragon's Rage kick, but outside of that, how much defensive properties do you really, want to be blowing on this Yone? I mean, it's going to be realistically the Chains of Corruption Rel isn't going to want to peel it because she's going to be wanting to be aggressive herself into the backline to access Nina. So it feels as though the Varus going to be forced to self-peel, and it's going to be on Marvel to keep an eye on his flanks to stay safe. But that's easier said than done when you're playing an AD carry versus any kind of mid laner, specifically one that is designed to blow people up.
I mean, easier said than done, but I think if there's anyone that's going to do it, it will be Marble. He's been very impressive in terms of his positioning and his low deaths, which we've touched on briefly earlier. Maybe there are a few too many threats for him to deal with, but it's going to be really interesting nonetheless to see whether he is able to still land these piercing arrows and this damage whilst avoiding all the dive that Sengoku are going to be throwing at him.
Yeah, this game is going to be all about the vision control as well, because as I mentioned, Yu is going to be wanting to find those flanks as a Akainu, but I feel like Bashade wants to do the same. This Aurelia pick doesn't really want to play the front to back here, most likely wanting to gain that backline access because she needs to close the gap and buy space for the rest of the team. And whilst you do have a Rel to help you out, which is going to be somewhat useful with the dive, it's not going to be everything. You still do need a little bit of help in that regard. And to me, that's kind of why I think this early game is going to be so important, because the team that can start to snowball, generally, they're the ones that get to set up the vision. And with two teams that are relying with some of their champions to set up flanks, to try and find backline access, because they aren't the best at finding backline access by going straight through the enemy, outside of the realm.
Yeah.
It feels as though whoever does get that early game gets the vision control. And from there, the team fights become significantly easier to execute on.
And recollect, just before you jump into game, I feel like I'm sensing a little bit of trepidation when you're talking about V3's draft and the way that they want to play it out. Have they taken a risk here with the composition that they've put together for themselves?
Oh, I just don't like it, to be honest with you. The thing is that it feels as though the Sengoku side was really telegraphed in the first three, because you can't really opt into much else except for dive and high damage when you have something like this Ashe Viego who needs resets, and Ashe isn't exactly going to provide enough damage to set those resets up consistently. So to me, that's why I was saying about Karma being an option, is to me it's quite noticeable that the only way to do anything is to set up dive in your next two. So then to go Rel, which opts into allowing the enemy to dive and doesn't give you any sort of peel for an AD carry that's known for being immobile, as well as Ryze, who has the same issue, it just seems like a really silly mistake that was quite telegraphed if you're thinking about the context of what the other team has picked and what they need to round out the composition to make it actually work.
Well, we can see, well, we shall see, rather, if these three with composition that maybe we're not a massive fan of can pull off the win in this game versus Sengoku, who are on the blue side. V3 Academy obviously sat on the red. Nothing really going on in terms of the level 1. Have to see how these lanes pan out.
Yep, rune choices are all fairly standard stuff. I mean, people have opted to adapt in terms of the Ashe builds. A lot of people before were going the Lethal Tempo route, now preferring the Halo Blades to allow you to sort of set up that passive, get your Q stacking a little bit faster, and really abuse her early game power. To be honest, Ashe is known to have a very strong early game, and both the AD carries matching up well. They're both going for the longsword early start, so none of that D-Blade sustain healing, which kind of indicates a bit of an emphasis more on trying to fight each other very early on.
He was walked directly into Washide, which is a level 1 trade that Kennen doesn't necessarily win. It's actually been fairly even thus far, and Yu lands a couple of autos on the backside. We see junglers both starting on their respective blue buffs, so gonna have a little bit of a split map for the first few minutes.
Yeah, and I feel as though, in all honesty, this is going to favor the Sengoku a little bit more, but
Etel forced to crash down away. As good to see Nina and Chiliol using the power of this Freljordian duo to get themselves a little bit more pressure in the early game.
yeah, CC freezing is absolutely available for the Sengoku set. It's very difficult to do anything if you do end up getting hit by those concussive blows, because the Ashe obviously running the approach velocity rune, I do believe, if I'm remembering correctly,
Yes.
which means that if those concussive blows do hit, you just walk up, the autos become very easy, and with Hail Blades you can proc it very, very fast. So it becomes very dangerous if you are on the V3 set, and I think that Hetel is going to struggle really in those first couple of levels until you can get out of the lane. Because it's very, very challenging to actually engage onto a Brom lane. So if you engage, you just get locked up, CC'd, and then I think from there it's Sengoku winning. So V3, they kind of just have to play passive and not really do much until they receive a little bit of help. But it's going to be hard to get that help when Unica is spotted out by that Hawk shot, meaning they have perfect information on where the enemy jungler is likely to path as well as where he currently is.
Yeah. Interesting panning over to the mid lane just very briefly. Yujo's been very aggressive in his mana usage to try and get these early waves shoved in as quickly as he can. Now, is there a particular reason that he might be wanting to do that? Is this an optimal choice for him on the rise?
Yeah, so you're just going to be the classic sort of stacking up, pushing the first three, taking the reset to pick up tier, and then walking back to lane so you don't necessarily have to blow the teleport, though there's a high likelihood I think UGO actually messed it up a little bit, so probably going to have to blow the teleport now. But also the farming isn't completely optimal, so doesn't even have gold for tier, and that kind of creates a situation now where this rise, you want to stay around, but Viego can absolutely come and gank cover. I don't think Aki elected to do that one instead, going to full clear, and it means that now UGO kind of gets bailed out a little bit in terms of that lane control or CSing rather mistake. The lane control was absolutely fine if you're able to slow push it a little bit more optimally. But with his jungler nearby, he can kind of just get away with it. Likely to push the next two in and then just take the reset because the mana obviously is lacking. But the initial idea is just to push base tier. But yeah, with the way that the wave ended up panning out, kind of can't end up doing that one.
But, like you said, has been a little bit bailed out by his team as Akainu is going aggressively forward onto the rise. But Yu-Gi-Oh, confident that he didn't need any help, tells Unica to go away, go base. It's absolutely fine. And this is something that we'd really like to see from V3, is this vision game. We saw Unica hop over the wall to place that ward on Aki's wolf camp. Ashide move down to spot him out on the grump, and this just means that you can play with a lot more freedom in all of your lanes because you know where that Viego is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really difficult one to find those early ganks if you are completely spotted and completely tracked, and I love this idea because the usage of the vision ping pong is always going to be a powerful sort of tool, and I think it's heavily underrated, the concept that if you have jungle information, you can then utilize that to play the vision game in regards to if someone is spotted topside, you can have time to set up vision in the bot side freely if you're able to gain priority. And V3, they did that in the top side. I'd like to see now Unica path towards the bot side, set up a ward at that raptor camp. However, due to the pathing, it feels as though Unica's going to get spotted out by Sengoku. But V3, they do have mid lane priority, and as such, Yu-Gi-Oh is happy to just walk in and protect his jungler. Yeah,
Kainu doesn't have a level 6, so wouldn't be able to join with the Fate Sealed. Aki actually trading with Unica, who is able to smite away that raptor camp. So this is what we were talking about. That's the vision advantage they got. They knew that Aki was on the top side, and then Yu-Gi-Oh pushes out the mid lane, joins with his jungler, and they're able to steal away a camp.
Yep, they use that information very, very well, as if you are topside, obviously your bot camps are down respawning, so knowing the raptor timing is crucial here for this play, but it means that the information didn't go bot side. Keep an eye on this gank.
Yeah, Hetel crashes down, is forced back to toward 200 HP, but goes forward back onto Aki. Now Yuji's in the area as well. Viego is forced to flash, but he will just get hit down. First blood going over to V3's mid laner.
You have to feel like V3, they were absolutely debating that because they knew exactly where Aki was. It just feels a little bit greedy from the Viego because you have to consider the fact that your mid lane has blown that teleport already. Yu-Gi-Oh has got his available at the time, so it means you've got teleport advantage globally, and as such, Sengoku, they get punished hard for that mistake.
Going forward onto Marble, though, with the frost shot, slows down Hetel as well, who doesn't have the flash available now in that dismounted form, can just get chased. Marble does have the cleanse, does have the flash, will go forward, but the frost shot isn't connecting as Chilio takes piercing arrow to the face, but no one drops in the bot lane.
Yeah, both sums blown there for the V3 AD carry, and you have to feel that with Sengoku's composition, they're going to be much more happy with that situation because it means now you can try to make a global play towards this very immobile AD carry with a non-defensive support. So it's a little bit difficult now for Marble to play out this lane, and I feel as though, credit where credit's due, V3, they've done very well to secure that CS lead for themselves in that bot lane. However, it's about to get a whole lot rougher without that flash available.
Yeah, we've already talked about how much pressure you can experience from the Ash Braum. Once Nina hits that level 6, gets access to the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, that is going to be even worse for Marble and Hetel. So Unica may want to path towards this bot side, has a load of camps available. Will also be in the right place at the right time to bail them out of an attempted 2v2 kill from the Sengoku bot lane.
And on top of that, if you're not even really able to make the play, there's a high likelihood of V3 wanting to try and contest this dragon. Because of the Ocean Dragon in the early game, kind of going to be very useful, particularly within that top lane for helping out Flash a Day, also in the bot lane to help deal with the poke that can come through from this Ashe volley spam. So it's a really important dragon here for V3, and with Yu-Gi-Oh coming down here, they do have Realm Warp options.
Oh, they're going in as 3. Flash still available on Nyla. No flash on Chili Oil as he gets kicked back. He's able to jump away, but will get hit down with the Arcane Flux. There goes the Resonating Strike as Unica flashes forward. One more auto onto Nyla would do it as he just launches the cripple to pick up the kill. Now, Aki has been caught doing Krugs in the wrong area. Could just Spectral more away and survive on 200, 300, 400, 500 HP. But V3 continue to make the plays, and that area of potential strength for Sengoku gets turned right back around.
Yeah, 2 quick kills there for V3. They'll happily take that one, but Unica overstaying for this red buff. Enemies coming to try and deal with him.
Oh, goes back in there with the Resonating Strike and the Smite to pop himself away. Aki lands a stun, but Hazel could just jump over the wall. And it feels like this is exactly what V3 do. They're not the bloodiest team, but whenever they go for plays, they're doing it with maximum amount of information, and they're just able to pull them off so cleanly and consistently.
Yeah, execution is the name of the game here, and we saw this play end up being utilized well yesterday, and it feels like V3, they've added that one to their playbook. I love the usage of the Realm Warp here, and it's just CC into the kick to easy setup onto Chili Oil, and from here, yes, you're able to jump out, but nothing can happen, and I love this. You just end up doing the flash trade here for Unica. Always going to be advantageous as the aggressor to trade your flash onto the defender. So going to be solid there for the V3 jungler. And overall, V3 in a composition that I thought was going to struggle a little bit in those early stages, potentially, have done well enough to develop themselves a 2,500 gold lead. And on top of that, this first dragon... Oh, well, that's just sad. But... we'll ignore that, because Yu-Gi-Oh is going to take the donation. He'll be happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, the dragon going over here. It's V3 in a very commanding position.
And Sengoku haven't really done the... made the aggressive plays, had those response plays that you'd necessarily want from them in this matchup. Recognize that you are playing as the underdog against the supposedly better team. And in that scenario, I feel like you want to be playing your heart out, really going for every play that you can, but it's been unfortunately a little bit muted from the blue side team.
It's also very odd to me because it feels as though the Sengoku team, they're putting investments into the wrong area as well, but Aki is hanging around here for a second, but I don't think anything's going to come of it. It feels as though to me that if you were going to put investment into anywhere, you'd want to put it into your solo laners, the divers. But investing into this bot lane that is very defensive and innately is going to be hard to kill, because if you go onto it, that's exactly what they want. Making them play aggressive, it feels like you're overforcing a little bit. And whilst the Ashe Brom lane can get kills for sure if you can set up the concussive blows with the Ashe stacking and the arrow, it feels as though that isn't necessarily what you have to do to win the game for Sengoku.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always a way that you can sort of enable your solo lanes through this bot lane. You and Akainu both have TP now available if you're able to secure a deep ward and a flank. Yone and Kennen, both champions that could be very, very good in that sort of scenario. But we haven't seen that yet from Sengoku, as Washide doesn't connect with the sun in the top side, takes a little bit of his health bar in trade from you. And it feels like Sengoku are waiting for something to happen, when that isn't really what you need to be doing on their composition.
Yeah, I mean, waiting isn't exactly amazing. It's not bad for some of the champions. Obviously, you have scaling components within Viego, within Yone. But at the same time, it feels as though at that point you're letting the side laners come online for V3 as well. And in all honesty, I prefer the Aurelia later on to the Kennen. And I think that the Ryze versus Yone can be played out by the Ryze. I think, Yone can be more aggressive, but if you ever mess up and receive any Everfrost slowing from Yu-Gi-Oh, Akainu's in a lot of trouble. And on the subject of being in trouble, both the junglers here, but there's only one support.
Yeah, as Akainu is going forward, doesn't use the Fate Sealed, or back to the Shadow there. Unica 2 levels up on Aki when they were going for that play. Lee Sin really has been able to find a hell of a lot more in the early game.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're going to talk about that sort of early game, I think the most important thing for Sengoku is going to be how this Herald is used. Because whilst the Dragon was picked up, That guy was able to trade it off, and Marble.
Very aggressive by Marble, using the Chains of Corruption. Here comes the Realm Warp play again. The Enchanted Crystal lands onto 1, but the Magnet Storm lands onto 2. It's another kill for Yu-Gi-Oh! Wow. Marble gets one as well. And V3 are just so good at making these plays work.
I mean, credit where credit's due, right? Because I didn't think that play was going to necessarily work out for the side of V3, but the pulling of the trigger there from Marble is beautiful. It buys time for the other members to come in, and
Washide
nice.
With a huge prediction to land the stun. Ingozaki with the Heartbreaker, but his heart's going to be breaking as Unica just kicks it down with one more auto attack. That was beautiful, Washide.
I mean, yeah, that was beautiful stuff. I mean, the stun is just perfect. It's absolutely flawless, and oh my word, Unica doesn't stop.
Absolutely not. Does have the flash kick available, but Washide wasn't quite in range to follow up on that play. This is what we were talking about with V3 though. Not only are they great as a team, they're also really good individually and mechanically. They built themselves a 5k gold advantage at the 14-minute mark as these plates are beginning to drop away. They got themselves that first dragon, and this replay, well, this is just vintage V3, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just the usage of the global with this Realm Warp, because you see two members roaming down. It looks at first glance that the Chains of Corrupting are a little bit early, but it doesn't actually have to be, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Brings everyone in. The Magnet Storm setup is beautiful, and just enough damage comes onto Chili Oil to pick up that Brom kill as well, and it's just mechanically very pretty from V3, as well as solid macro understanding. And then we just have the most beautiful Aurelia stun I think I've seen in quite a while. The prediction on the dash into all of the damage you could possibly need, and from here, Aki's just gone, yep, I am in a lot of trouble now. My mid laner has just got completely styled on, and I'm going to have to die for it.
And that's absolutely not a misclick. Washide knows what he's doing there.
Oh, yeah.
Unica gets the kick onto a Kainu. The Rune Prison isn't available in time as the Fate Seal that takes the Yone away. Sengoku looking for a proactive play on their own on the bot side, but the Temple teleports to answer it. Going forward with the Magnet Storm, Hetal doesn't land onto anyone. And the aggression from both teams is just dissuaded. Unica is in the area, doesn't have the kick available, but Mountain Drake is on the board, and V3 have got the position.
Yeah, and most importantly, V3 are in a state where the flank can't come through just yet for you. However, the Kennen trying to find flank access, but hello?
Oh, a detract repel onto Chili Oil, who will be falling at the start of the fight. That's a very nice resonating strike coming through onto Niner as it's a second kill for Marble. Another one goes over to Yu-Gi-Oh! And V3 just keep winning in with the Realm Warp on top of you. It's a very big slicing maelstrom, but it's somehow not enough. No one from V3 has gone down. You'll be falling to one more auto attack from Yu-Gi-Oh! As he's finally traded. And that is an ace for 1 at 15 minutes. What the hell is this V3 team?
I mean, V3 just doesn't care. They understand the fact that, yes, Yu is trying to flank them, but it doesn't matter if you just run through absolutely everyone before the Kennen can show up. And it's just great stuff there from Adal. Comes in aggressively on this rail, and keep your eyes on Yu. Was trying to come around the top side, but then Hetal just goes in with the jump in, and there's just plenty of damage through this Varus. The Chains of Corruption are absolutely beautiful as well. It creates a situation where everyone has to split now from the members of Sengoku, and Niner is just free pickings. And I thought the Realm Warp was a little bit over-aggressive originally, because you're just going into a slicing maelstrom. But the Kennen just doesn't quite have the damage. Yu doesn't have the items to really do a whole lot. And Akainu also lacking in the damage department at this point. The CC comes through. And yes, you trade and get a little bit of shutdown onto the Kennen. But it doesn't really matter because it's a free ace pickup for the side of V3.
Yeah, absolutely not worth on that one. As the gold per player differences are a little bit disgusting. 1k in the top lane, 1.5 in the jungle, 1.7 in the mid. 2.7k gold advantage for Marble. That is straight up a whole item.
Yeah. And the best part is the Marble isn't even fully online, because if you take a look at that little bit of tier itemization, it's not fully stacked yet.
Oh, it's not.
The actual stats that come through, this is the damage being dealt without the fully stacked tier. So as soon as that does end up getting upgraded, there's going to be plenty of damage coming through from the V380 carry on top of the damage that's already being dealt, and the subject of damage being dealt, using a bit of trouble.
Yeah, Slicing Maelstrom is not quite there, as the CC chain is just immaculate, and Washide picks himself up another kill.
Yeah, V3 is just looking so clean. I mean, it just feels as though they're on another level at this point, and Sengoku, they're trying to respond on the bot side, but take a look. From the side of Yu-Gi-Oh, it's just not there. There's no need to be there. You aren't going to be able to defend the tower anyway, so you just back up. You use that time to farm up camps so you make yourself stronger anyway, and then rotate mid to deny any potential rotation play as well. On top of that, they're going to be able to secure themselves this Herald on the top side. So realistically, the macro from V3 is immaculate because they're gaining advantage top lane. They're not losing more than they have to in the bot lane, and they're getting priority mid at the same time as taking an objective. Meanwhile, the enemy team is just taking a bot tower.
Yeah, it's a bot tier 1 for a Herald and a top lane tier 2 and probably a couple camps of XP and CS for Yu-Gi-Oh! So what you want to be doing is trading when you're behind, but the unfortunate thing is V3 are always able to win out on those trades. Now Unica looking for something here, does land at the Sonic Wave, the Realm Warp only transporting a couple of minions forward though, and V3 will gladly pick up the mid tower.
Yeah, that's all it was. It was meant to dissuade. They were threatening the potential engage of V3. They bluff out Sengoku. Sengoku does end up backing up, and off the back of that, it is a free tower. There's no way that you can stand up. If you do stand up, you have to fear, Magnet Storm coming through that Realm Warp from Hytel, and yeah, off the back of that, V3, they've taken all of the outer towers now. They're in a very commanding position, and if you just take a look at that gold graph, it's a massive advantage here for V3 at only 19 minutes.
And I think this is exactly what we needed to see from V3. Obviously, heavy favourites coming into this game. But if this had been a prostrated game where they're not able to find these big advantages early on, then maybe we start to question how strong they actually are. It's 9k at 19 minutes. They really are showing off how good they are. Akainu looking for the 1v1 onto Yu-Gi-Oh, but can't find it because of that Rune Prison. Yeah, that's not a great looking gold graph if you are a Sengoku fan.
Yeah, that's not exactly the right direction, unless you are, of course, a V3 fan. Because at the moment, Sengoku, they're kind of bleeding gold everywhere. It feels like in terms of jungle camps, they're bleeding. In terms of top XP and CS, they're bleeding. Pretty much every single member on the side of V3, in fact, every single member, I believe, has an advantage over their opposite counterpart, except for Yu-Gi-Oh!
This is going to be a pretty early Baron. 20 minutes on the clock. Earliest possible Baron for V3, but I feel like they've got the strength to do it. Maybe not the DPS, though, as it is only on 6,000. Sengoku are moving over. But Aki really isn't in the area just yet. It's down to 2,000. There's the Enchanted Crystalline landing onto Hetel. Here's come forward with the Slicing Maelstrom. It's stolen away by Sengoku, but they might not get the fight. They pay for the Baron with their lives. It's a couple of kills picked up for Washi Day.
Yeah, it buys a lot of time here for Sengoku, but 4 members going down is going to be critical because it means that mid tower is going to get pushed in. And having said that, though, Akainu does end up getting to pick up that Baron buff for themselves. But remember, the Herald is still available for Unica. And I feel as though with that, they're going to be easily able to get themselves that mid lane inhibitor tower if they want to do so. Though they don't necessarily have to, it may be better for them to get this tower and they just move towards that dragon spawning in the next 3 seconds. Yeah,
it would be sole point if they can pick up this Cloud Drake, and I don't think they should have any problems with that. Obviously, not the most powerful soul, and this is a little bit suboptimal from the V3 members as they did lose the Baron, but it was such a clean team fight afterwards.
Yeah, my initial thoughts was they were going to try and turn, but that knock-up is massive from the Baron to dissuade Hytel from trying to engage, and the Slicing Maelstrom over the top is going to do quite a bit of damage, but Aki does come in clutch, ends up picking that Baron up. However, you've just blown so much, and realistically, the backline wasn't there to deal damage yet. Nino wasn't in the fight, and as such, when you're this far behind, you can't have only 2 people fighting against 4.
Yeah, it does mean, though, like you mentioned, Akainu has the Baron buff on himself. Realm Warp to throw Yu-Gi-Oh towards the top lane, deny this top lane push. It's a little bit of a stumbling block for V3, but they are still commandingly in the advantage.
Yeah, absolutely, and as we mentioned before, that Herald being spawned here in the mid lane, this is kind of meant to be a pressure sponge here for the side of V3. They're going to drop it, force a member to come and answer, and it means that Unica can now move towards the top side to try and catch out Akainu, but Akainu reads it, and as such, it's just going to be jungle camps now gained here, most likely here for the V3 jungler.
I imagine we're going to be entering into a little bit of a lull state, no big objectives on the map, and I think Sengoku are pretty content with just staying in their base, staying around their structures for now. Zaki might be a little bit caught out if Unica chooses to go towards the Viego, but does not do so. Herald summoned just to get a bit of a chunk on that mid lane tower.
Yeah, however, in the bot side, Vashide might be getting caught out as the kindness here.
Yeah, very far forward. Very nice flashes. Yu is being jumped on here. Here comes Hetel as well on the rel. Enchanted Crystal Arrow goes wide. That's a very big pick for V3. Can they get anything more with it? They're pressuring Akainu away from this bot lane tower and looking to get themselves even more gold.
I mean, that was just so good for Vashide. The little outplay there in terms of dodging the Fate Sealed and then the re-engage onto you, knowing the fact that Akainu was going to jump back. It's just styling at this point. There's nothing less to say about it than just stylish gameplay here from the top laner of V3. And it's a nice little statement game and a little bit of asserting dominance there in terms of that individual matchup. Betel might be looking here and threatening.
Stun lands onto Chili Oil. Akaino's gone in. He's gone out. Mid lane tower will be falling for Yu-Gi-Oh! As he's just been able to split push whilst the rest of his team 4v5 is taking bot lane towers. V3 really are in a dominant position.
Yeah, it's just a case of that gold lead being completely flexed here from the side of V3, and they don't have to stop. It's not like they're using Baron here. They're just using their individual champion strength. This doesn't get better for Sengoku if they wait.
Oh, Hetel might be going for something here. Unica resonating strikes forward, but will be stunned up by Aki as well, actually, as the Heartbreaker comes out. But because of the rest of the members of V3 don't want to commit any further forward for Sengoku. Won't be an inhibitor, just the tower picked up. As V3 continuing their dominance.
As you say, it's just that tower picked up here for V3, but the inhibitor going down is going to be massive in terms of those supers to apply even more pressure onto the map. And considering, you know, how long that's going to be down for, we got to think about things like the Baron and the Cloud Dragon spawning, because this is sole point, right, for V3 as of right now. So they're in a very strong spot, and an argument could be made, you know, that the inhibitor falling means that Sengoku gets super minions, and that means they're going to get golden experience, but it's a 12,000 gold lead. It doesn't matter. Like, in reality, if V3 cannot close in the next 5 minutes, that has nothing to do with the mid lane, you know, inhibitor being down. That is purely V3 misplaying. There is no way that this game should go longer than the next 5 minutes, because, I mean, we can be the greatest fan of Sengoku, but right now any team that's down 12,000 gold is in a horrible state.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It feels bad.
We're scaling.
I mean, Akainu's got the Infinity Edge now. So maybe Dione can do something, landing a big combo onto Yu-Gi-Oh! And Marble. But I feel like the reality of what happens in that situation is Yu-Gi-Oh! Just presses Zonya's, Akainu turns around and gets half his health bar taken off of it by an EQ. Yeah,
I mean, that's kind of the issue, is that it's like, yes, the owner's on 2 items, but Rise is on 3. So, and in the sideline situation, it's still very difficult, and that's kind of the talking point here, is that I don't think there's any members from Sengoku that are actually up on their opponents that you can use as a point of pressure. The best chance you can have is to try and look for picks onto isolated members, and that's why they're trying to force with the Enchanted Crystal Arrow there. But V3 doesn't tend to make that many mistakes in terms of their, you know, players getting caught out. It's very, very rare that we see that, and we've even seen it this game with Yu-Gi-Oh! Understanding they were defensive and on the weak side and backing away from a tower and just giving it. And V3 is great at that. And just look at the way that they're manipulating the opposition, moving them towards the top lane and then moving towards the mid lane whilst the bot lane wave is triple stacking up. And it just gets crashed in by Yu-Gi-Oh! To take half of the tower damage, essentially uncontested, whilst also meaning you can set up the vision control to get this dragon secured. And it's just beautiful stuff here from the side of V3 to use their macro to manipulate their opposition into exactly what they want.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a very V3 style game. Obviously, they're sat at a massive advantage, but they're not overdiving. They're not going for anything stupid. They understand that their chance of victory only goes up as they secure stuff like the Cloud Drake, like this Baron, which is now on the table. And you don't want to give your opponents any shot of getting back into the game. Julio being forced out of his own jungle. I know he's forced to back as well. Aki's found himself a little bit of a small pocket of darkness for V3. Could look for the second steal of the game, but has no information of what is going on in the pit.
Ooh,
there you go, throws over the control ward. Teleport is going to be coming through from you, trying to get into there onto the backside. There we are. Hose out the Maelstrom as it's slicing through V3 members. The resets are starting to come out. Hettel is on single-digit HP almost, but Marble does way too much damage, man. It's another Baron going in favor of Sengoku, but they're about to lose the game as it's a pentakill for the V380 carry.
Yeah, it's a pentakill for Marble. Great stuff there from V3 to turn that one around and get themselves the big team fight win. And with that ace and 20-second death time, as you have to feel that's going to be game over. Bye-bye, Sengoku.
Yeah, it was a valiant attempt by Sengoku, but V3 Esports Academy are just way too good. They are going to be continuing forward with this victory to face DFM Academy in the semi-finals.
Yeah, congratulations there to V3, securing a win that, honestly, it felt like they were in control pretty much from start to finish off of that initial bot lane play. They did end up countering, utilizing Yu-Gi-Oh's teleport. From that moment on, they were the ones who were active. They were the ones who were in complete control, and the macro was beautiful, as it usually is from V3, and that's just how they take their wins, and it's what's so scary about them. They make neutral states winning.
Yeah, as we are going to be getting a replay of that last team fight. Marble just gets hit by the slicing Maelstrom, but then really isn't troubled by anyone else. Does the damage on this Varus pick, picks up a pentakill.
Yeah, there is one other aspect to this fight that I wanted to mention, though, and that's the fact that Unica went down so early on the Lee Sin, but the members of Sengoku with the Baron on 1000 health, they didn't focus it to get it just that little bit lower for the Viego smite to come through. I feel as though if they're able to do that, they take way less damage from the Baron, because they were behind it, 2 members, in fact. I think you and the Viego, if I'm remembering correctly, were both behind the Baron itself, taking quite a bit of damage from that. And if you blow that one up, suddenly then you can engage onto Marble on this AD carry on the Varus. But Marble was allowed to free hit, allowed to free deal damage, and we mentioned that once that Muramana comes online and becomes the full damage that it can be, this Varus just spikes hard, and he spiked incredibly hard into the members of Sengoku.
Yeah, it was a bit of a ludicrous amount of damage coming out from Marble on that Varus, but I want to give props to Sengoku. Whilst it was a very difficult game for them to play out, there were a couple of times where, despite the massive gold disadvantage they were at, well, like that last play at the Baron, there were definitely angles that they could have played it out. It was a beautiful ultimate slicing Maelstrom from you, as well as Aki trying to get as many resets as he could on the backside of the fight. Ultimately, not enough. Now, if you're V3 looking forward in the semi-final, which is going to be occurring later today, I believe after our next game, you're facing off against DFM Academy. Based on how this game has gone, how confident are you feeling for that match?
Oh, I think V3 wins. I'd give it 80%, 90%. I think to me, V3. I said it from day one, and I tend to sort of stick with what I think. I trust my instinct on that, and I feel like V3, they just look really good. That, like, from game 1, game 2, game 3, it doesn't matter how many games we've seen them. To me, they've almost always looked good in the macro game, whether they were ahead or behind at the time. Though we don't really tend to see them behind that much, to be fair. They always feel like they're one step ahead, like they're playing. They're playing chess with a queen, and the other team doesn't have one. That's how it feels when you watch V3 play, and it also feels like, from a mechanical standpoint, who can you say mechanically played badly this game? It's like, to me, not really anyone. Yeah. So the question I'd have to ask is that what going into it originally before this game, I would have said V3 is going to win probably 70-80%. So I don't think that this game has given me any reason to doubt that thought process, because they just looked good from minute 3 to minute 60. It didn't matter at what point in this game we went, they just looked good, and to me, they looked clean.
Well, we are going to be seeing them in action after our next game, which of course is going to be CGA Academy versus Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks Gaming Academy. We're popping to a short break now, but stick around, because that game is coming up right after this.